Within every woman, there is a hidden battlefield, one that most men will never understand. And it's not because they're incapable. It's because they've been deliberately lied to. You've been told women want love, softness, emotional availability, that if you aren't just nice enough, patient enough, open enough, she'll fall in love with you. But what if I told you that idea, the one you've been building your entire romantic identity around, was based on a lie? A lie so dangerous that the man who uncovered the truth buried it in private letters, censored his own research, and warned the world it would be too much to handle. That man was Sigmund Freud, and what he discovered about female desire terrified even him. In the letters Freud never published, he made a chilling observation. He said the civilized woman is a facade. Beneath it lies a chaos of primal impulses, a hunger that dares not speak its name. He wasn't being poetic. He was being clinical. In session after session with female patients, Freud found a disturbing pattern. What women wanted, deep down unconsciously, wasn't romance. It wasn't flowers or candlelight. It was power. It was tension. It was psychological surrender, triggered by dominance. These weren't just fantasies. They were physiological realities. Their bodies responded not to kindness, but to the edge, the line between resistance and submission. Women were aroused by emotional chaos, by the feeling of being outmatched, not because they were broken, but because their biology demanded it. Take Anna von Lieben. Anna von Lieben was a wealthy Viennese aristocrat, born into a prominent Jewish family. She was one of Freud's most important early patients, and he treated her in the early 1890s for what was then called hysteria. Her symptoms included severe migraines, nausea, hallucinations, paralysis, emotional breakdowns, and more, all of which had no identifiable physical cause. Freud, desperate to understand, dug into her subconscious. What he found: desire, not for love, not for gentleness, but for domination. Anna craved humiliation, powerlessness, even violence. The very things society told her to suppress were the things that made her feel alive. Then came Dora, 18 years old, sharp-minded. She accused a man of inappropriate advances, but Freud's notes tell a different story. Dora wasn't disgusted by the man. She was obsessed with the tension. What broke her wasn't his behavior. It was that he stopped chasing when she resisted. Her hysteria wasn't trauma. It was frustration. Freud saw the same pattern over and over. Women's desire wasn't clean. It was complicated. Rejection didn't kill attraction. It ignited. Now here's where the world completely misunderstood. Freud, he introduced the idea of penis envy and was ridiculed for it. People thought he meant women wanted a man's body part, but that was never the point. Freud was talking about something much deeper: power, freedom, agency. In Freud's time, women were trained to be receivers, not initiators. They were told their role was to wait, not to act, to yield, not to pursue. So their desire didn't vanish, it just mutated. Women began to crave men who could take control, not because they lacked strength, but because they were forbidden from expressing it. Submission became the only socially acceptable form of power exchange, not because they were weak, but because it allowed them to experience strength without breaking the rules. This is why even the most independent woman can still find herself fantasizing about being dominated, emotionally, mentally, even physically. It's not low self-esteem, it's biology looking for balance. So let's get brutally honest. The nice guy doesn't fail because he's respectful. He fails because he's predictable, because he offers safety, and safety does not arouse. Desire doesn't thrive in certainty. It thrives in polarity, in the dance between power and surrender. The man who understands this doesn't hate women. He doesn't manipulate them. He simply stops believing the lie that says the path to her heart is through comfort. The truth is, her desire begins where your certainty ends. When she feels your frame unshaken, unbothered, unyielding, that's when the attraction begins, not before. There's something spreading across the modern world. And no, it's not a virus. It's not a war. It's something colder, quieter, more dangerous. It's silence, the kind that festers between men and women, the kind that turns a generation of young men into ghosts, invisible, unwanted, disconnected. They're not just being rejected, they're retreating from dating, from relationships, from intimacy itself. And the most terrifying part? They're not crazy, they're not broken, they're responding logically to a rigged game. Let me tell you a story, not the kind you'll find in classrooms, but the kind buried in old case notes, forgotten by a society that doesn't want to admit what it's done. In 1908, Freud treated a young man named Edward. He was everything the world told men to be: polite, educated, financially stable. He opened doors. He listened. He cared. And yet, his wife despised him. She mocked his sensitivity. She flirted with other men. And eventually, she left him for a violent, jobless factory worker with a criminal record. Freud's diagnosis: moral castration. Edward had neutered himself, cut off his instincts, suppressed his fire, and in doing so made himself sexless in the eyes of his woman, not because he was weak, but because he was obedient, and women do not lust after obedience. Today, the average man under 30 is 3 times more likely to be celibate than his father was at the same age. And we're not talking about monks, we're talking about regular men, working, social, smart, but completely locked out of the mating system. Why? Because the rules changed, and nobody told them. The old blueprint said, be kind, be stable, be respectful, but now, that gets you ignored, ghosted, friend-zoned. Meanwhile, the men who win, they are not following the rules, they're breaking them. A study from the University of Oslo looked at female behavior on dating apps. Here's what they found. Women rated 85% of men as below average in attractiveness, not unattractive, beneath consideration. That means most men today aren't even visible. Another finding: given the choice, most women would rather share one top-tier man than commit to a loyal, stable, predictable one. Why? Because monotony kills desire, because comfort feels like death, because biology doesn't care about fairness, it only cares about intensity. Freud saw it before apps even existed. He called it the boredom principle, the idea that desire thrives in contrast, not in safety and risk, not in routine, in variation. Women, like all humans, are wired to chase novelty, but their version of novelty is tied to emotional danger. You give her everything up front. She has no reason to feel. You explain yourself too much. She tunes out. You worship her like a queen. She starts looking for a king, because admiration without tension is nothing. In the 1950s, psychologist John Money ran experiments that would never pass ethics boards today, but what he found was chilling. Women said they were attracted to kind, stable men, but when hooked up to arousal monitors, their bodies betrayed them. Their heart rate, pupils, skin, all reacted to images of dominant, even aggressive men, not the smiling, safe ones, the disapproving ones, the untouchable ones. So what did Money do with this data? He buried it, because the truth was too inconvenient, because it shattered the emerging feminist myth that female desire is logical, fair, and equal. It's not. It never was. You want more proof? Go to any bookstore. Go to the romance section. What do you find? Dark romance, mafia bosses, billionaires, kidnappers, even war criminals. And the women, they're smart, educated, successful, and they're obsessed with dangerous, dominant men, not because they're victims, but because their instincts are searching for something society told them to repress. OnlyFans, same thing. The men getting paid aren't polite boyfriends. They're distant, cold, aggressive. The women paying them, they don't want compliments. They want command. Even in politics, authoritarian leaders get more female support than soft-spoken reformers. Why? Because biology doesn't care about slogans. It cares about survival. Freud called it the Thanos Effect, the subconscious pull women have toward destructive energy, not because they want pain, but because they crave power, even if it comes wrapped in danger. And the men who don't understand this, they get left behind, alone, frustrated, confused by a world where their efforts are invisible, while their silence is punished. This isn't a hate piece. It's not blame. It's biology. Freud's most controversial insight was this: women do not control their desires any more than men do, but society gives them permission to lie about it, to live one way and lust another, to condemn dominance while secretly craving it. A man says he wants a submissive wife. He gets shamed. A woman craves a dominant man. She just has to call it a guilty pleasure. Let's start with the lie. You were told to be vulnerable, to share your feelings, to always ask, to never impose, to center her emotions and silence your instincts. You were told that masculinity is toxic, that leadership is controlling, that dominance is abuse, and so you softened. You stopped taking the lead. You apologized for having standards. You treated women as equals in every way: emotional, sexual, relational. But here's the truth. She doesn't want to be your equal. She wants to be your exception. And the moment you treat her like a peer instead of a prize, she loses interest, not because she's cruel, but because polarity has collapsed. In 1927, a young psychologist named Wilhelm Reich, Freud's own protege, did something unthinkable. He interviewed working-class women in Berlin, away from the salons and scientific journals, and he asked them one forbidden question: what kind of man actually excites you? The answers: explosive. Women admitted they didn't want soft, sensitive men. They didn't want a best friend. They wanted power, decisiveness, control. One woman said it outright: I don't want to be his friend. I want to be his exception. Reich published the results. The Nazis burned the research because it contradicted every emerging social narrative, including the sanitized version of what women were supposed to want. Now fast forward 100 years. We've created the ideal safe man: listens more than he talks, checks in before making a move, believes in complete emotional transparency, centers the woman's needs at every step. And what happens? She leaves. She says, you're amazing, but something's missing. I love you, but I'm not in love with you. Translation: you make me feel safe, but not alive. Because passion doesn't thrive in perfect harmony. It lives in friction, in the space between direction and surrender, between masculine order and feminine chaos. And the man who gives up his frame in pursuit of approval, he becomes invisible to her. Why she gets bored fast. Freud called this the hedonic treadmill. Humans adapt to pleasure. They don't stay turned on by kindness, comfort, or consistency. They need challenge to feel anything at all. Give her everything she says she wants. She doesn't feel lucky. She feels numb. And once she's numb, she starts testing you, poking you, withdrawing from you, just to feel something. If you chase her, you fail the test. If you argue, explain, or beg, you lose frame. And when a man loses frame, he loses her respect. Society tells men, don't be dominant, don't have boundaries, don't expect anything in return, just be available, be nice, be supportive, and then wonder why you're ghosted, ignored, cheated on, or used. It's not because you're unworthy. It's because you surrendered before she felt your strength. So what's the answer? Do you become cold, heartless, manipulative? No. You become unshakable. Here's the formula: silence over justification. Don't explain yourself. Let her wonder. Curiosity creates emotional investment. Direction over discussion. Don't ask what she wants. Lead her there. Decisiveness is cognitive dominance, and it's erotic. Presence over performance. Don't perform to be liked. Exist as if you are the standard. That's what creates magnetism. Standards over supplication. Reward behavior that aligns with your values. Withdraw attention when it doesn't. Not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Because the man who keeps his frame doesn't chase love. He attracts loyalty. This war on masculinity didn't start with hate. It started with fear. Fear of male power. Fear of untamed instinct. Fear of the fact that when a man stands tall in who he is, he cannot be manipulated. And that's what part 4 is all about. Because now we dive into the most dangerous discovery of all, the Freudian secret that rewires female desire. The trigger so primal, so forbidden, that once you understand it, you'll never look at attraction the same way again. Like, share, and subscribe.